Hey guys, I'm going to show you a little how-to video here on something that most people will run into with these cars, with these new trunk drops. And if you recall the problems we were having with the trunk pan not being exact, and the trunk drops follow the line of the trunk pan, which was wrong for the Pontiac for sure. So what I'm going to do, you can actually see inside here. There's a big gap in there. We need to fill that gap. But you can also see that over here, this doesn't match the shape of the quarter panel. It's hanging out. So what we need to do, and you can see I have an orange line on there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut that line straight down and then rotate the piece up. That way it will line up a lot better with not only the quarter panel, but it'll meet the trunk, the floor of the trunk, the way it's supposed to. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead before it's all finished up and I'll make a filler piece for the gap that's going to be there. So I'm going to move the camera over here, put my hearing protection on, and that's key, guys. When you're doing this cutting, protection, eyes, ears, you got to do it, because when you're using these cutting tools, it's very loud, it's very rough on your ears. Ask me how I know. I'll move the camera here and I'm going to show you a quick little thing how we're going to fix that. That's a pretty big gap there. That's close to, that's actually over 2 inches at the very top where it's supposed to meet. And it's just because the panels are made wrong and we have to make it work. So I'll move the camera and we'll get started here. I'll bring the camera back over here and you can see with just a little more trimming and fitting, we're going to make this work. Let me slide the camera over. We've closed that gap up almost all the way. Once this piece is moved into position here, I've got a little bit of trimming to do. This is going to come up. I've got to trim a little off here and make it flat. Trim a little off of this. You can see how we're almost lined up with the quarter panel here. So this is going to work out really good. And as I said, what I'll end up doing here is I'll just go ahead and make a filler piece for this once I have all this marked and held in place and I'm happy with it all. We'll make a filler piece for here. We'll have to do the same thing for the other side, but this is how you're going to make it work. As I said, I believe these are all for the Chevelle Malibu, so they just make it kind of, you could call it like a one-size-fits-all type of thing. That's not necessarily the case depending on the car line, and obviously Pontiac is way different. So I'm not going to bore you with a long drawn-out video. I just wanted to show you real quick how you can remedy a situation like what we have. Once I draw all this up, this is going to be really nice, and this will be a lot closer to what the factory was, because you can see if I pull it up, we're almost on the line of the quarter here. And that's what we want. So pretty big filler piece, nothing we can do about it. You can see the gap we now have. I've got a Cleco, I've got a couple clamps, we've got it in position. You can notice up here we're flat to the floor all the way out. This tab just needs to be trimmed off here, but this is going to work for us. I got a little spot right here where this is going to have to get flattened out. Right now it's up like this. I'll have to just put a little notch and get this to come straight across here, but this is it. This is what we want. You can see we've got a pretty good sized piece we're going to have to make for here, a pretty good sized wedge. And if you follow the shape of the quarter down here, you can see it kind of comes up and then goes back out and comes up again. And that is not the way these trunk drops are made. I'm going to go over to the original trunk drop from this side, and next to it I'm going to have the trunk drop, the new trunk drop from the other side, and you can see the difference in the pieces. There's the two pieces. There's a left and a right, old and new. You can see they look like they're pretty close. But we run into a problem right there. And that's the front door, so I'll be right back. Okay, you can see I've got my wedge piece made up here. I'll move the camera here shortly and just tack this in place and then bring the camera around and show you what I did. But just made a piece here, put a brake right here, Follow the shape of this so that we follow the similar line of the quarter panel and a similar line of the factory piece, and it kind of closes up the little bit of gap that was in there. There's a tiny one down here, and it's just how this piece is stamped, and I'll probably make a tiny little extra tail down here to close this off. And we're just going to put some tacks on. We're not going to weld this fast until the quarter panel is off, so we can weld it true from the other side and grind it smooth. That weld through primer, you can hear it popping. When I finish weld this, I'll go ahead and grind that primer off. Okay, we've got that there, and we'll bring this closed. There we go. I think we need a little tack there. Let me grab my hammer. Clamp a little bit. It's a little tricky sometimes. You've got to move it around. The heat does make it move. That should do it. That's going to allow us, we can take that off. I'll grind this weld through primer off of here, because even though they call it weld through primer, it makes for dirty welds. So grind it all off, make sure your steel is really super clean, you got good gas in your welder, and you go from there. I'll bring the camera around here and I'll show you. You can see that piece is in there. We followed our line here, it runs down, runs into here, and then runs down. So our brake lines are following one another. We've got plenty of surface area along here to run our plug welds to simulate the factory spot welds. Just wanted to show you that modification from start to finish. Other than the finish welding, that piece is done. Stay tuned for more.